I think shippers actually have had a really hard time with this historically, where a shipper works with the 3PL, they buy their software stack, maybe it gets connected. But things change. Businesses grow. They add new 3PLs, they expand, they go from D2C to retail. Businesses are always evolving, but the challenge is once they set their tech stack up once, as their business evolves, their tech stack stays behind because they can't keep up with their growing business. So they have stagnant tools or they're stuck with the 3PL that can't support them properly. And what's nice about Trackstar is we add flexibility into their infrastructure.
Welcome to Parcel Perspectives, the podcast dedicated to small parcel shippers. I'm Glenn Gooding, and each episode we dive into insights, best practices, and strategies to help you navigate this complex and costly market.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Parcel Perspectives. I'm Glenn Gooding. Today, I'm joined by Jeremy Schneck, co-founder of Trackstar, a company often called the plaid for supply chain. Trackstar is making it dramatically easier for software providers to connect with warehouse systems. What used to take months into just minutes. With a background in finance and investing, Jeremy is now focused on reshaping how supply chains integrate and innovate. I'm very excited to dive in with him on breaking through bottlenecks and building the future of logistics in tech. Jeremy, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to talk about all the cool stuff we're seeing in supply chain and how Trackstar powers a very small piece of it.
Excellent. You know, Jeremy, I was hoping, could you start by sharing just a little bit about your background and how you came to focus on solving these integration challenges?
Yeah, I think what I like to say is we stumbled into building an integration layer for the supply chain. My background's in finance, like you highlighted. I used to invest in retail, consumer, food and beverage companies at a fund called Oak Hill Advisors. My co-founder, Daniel, who's amazing, he was an early product manager at Datadog. I don't know how familiar your listeners are with Datadog, but multi-billion-dollar cloud monitoring and observability tool for developers.
Okay.
The two of us originally had a different insight. Like a lot of startups, we were building something different, and it led to our current product. But based on my background and his background, we decided to start building tech in the e-commerce space. We had an insight, which is not that crazy of one, that running a brand is very difficult. Brands are always putting out hair on fire problems across their business and operations. So we built what we like to call it Datadog for e-commerce. We would help brands catch issues across their tools. Broken checkout flows, leaked discount codes, site speed problems, and more. What ended up happening is brands said, hey, what you're solving is nice to have, but it's not mission critical for us. Where we really lack visibility is in our supply chain ops. Would you ever be able to integrate with our supply chain tools and catch issues across that? And we're like, maybe, that's really interesting. What would you want us to integrate with? And we had 30-something customers at the time, and they all said, we would love it if you integrated with my WMS. The challenge was those 30-something customers were on 25 unique WMS. And we're like, we're like, whoa, that's crazy. We can't go build 25 integrations just to support 30 plus customers. It honestly just isn't economically viable for us to put in that integration lift. We looked for a universal API, something that would help us connect to these systems more easily. Nothing existed on the market. And then Daniel and I joked, someone should really solve this problem. But that's a really hard problem to solve. It's painful. It's not easy. Good luck to whoever does it. Fast forward 6 months later, and we realized we should be running towards hard problems. And we built the integration infrastructure we really needed. So we full pivoted. We stopped building the monitoring product, and we decided to build a universal API for WMS to provide that integration support that we had desperately needed previously.
Wow. So you kind of stumbled into this by listening to customers, huh?
Yeah, that's best way to do it. And 100% stumbled into it. I think what's interesting about supply chain is I feel like there's two types of people in it. Folks who have been in the industry for many years and have incredible expertise. And then people who stumble in and then never leave because they realize how much complexity and nuance there is. Being in the industry makes me realize how crazy it is how we get goods on time with such consistency, given how many different legs there are in the chain for a product moving from A to B.
Yeah, I think our listeners wouldn't have to stretch too far to put me into the proper bucket, probably the former versus the latter, right?
Yeah.
I like to tell folks I started in this industry when I was 10, but I'd be lying blatantly. So I just been doing it a while. Well, if you don't mind, you really have my attention because, the supply chain, as nuanced, as sophisticated, as complex as the supply chain really has always been, the Achilles heel in my mind has been that those pinch points, those roadblocks, the lack of integration, the lack of communication. You have me incredibly interested and intrigued. If you don't mind, I'd like to dive into some details with you. Why have 3PLs and WMS integrations been such a persistent bottleneck for shippers?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand why integrations even are relevant here. It's WMS, and your listeners likely all know this, warehouse management system of record for all data in a warehouse. It tracks the movement of goods, what's arriving at the warehouse, what inventory is in the warehouse, what goods are leaving, order data, shipment data, and more. So we're talking about super valuable information. I think something like 95% of products that consumers purchase at some point flow through a warehouse. WMS track all that information, really valuable data. Now, the challenge is why are integrations so hard? It's twofold. WMS, for the most part, are older, more outdated legacy systems. The way the industry's evolved is they are not, as you think about like pure SaaS companies, there are more legacy enterprise software. And legacy enterprise software generally doesn't have the same ease of integration as a modern tech platform like Shopify. We happen to love integrating with REST API, but there's all different ways you can get data. There's REST API, there's GraphQL, there's SOAP, there's EDI, there's SFTP buckets. So one, old outdated legacy systems that are generally hard to integrate with. And WMS, the bread and butter isn't connectivity, it's power and warehouse operations. The second side of it is there's hundreds of different WMS out there. I break WMS into two buckets. There's off-the-shelf systems anyone can buy. So me and you want to open a warehouse. I'm based in New York City, but in New York City, for whatever reason, we can buy one of dozens and dozens of systems off the shelf. ShipHero, Tabasco, Veracor, Manhattan, Blue Yonder, PeopleBox, MintSoft, et cetera, et cetera. But that's only half the story. There's also a lot of 3PLs that have been around for 10, 20, 30 years that have built their own custom WMS in-house. So I think about the ecosystem of WMS. We're talking about valuable data locked away in a highly fragmented market where no WMS has significant market share, and they're, for the most part, older, more outdated legacy systems. So if you're a company that needs a tool to connect your WMS, that tool is in for a rude awakening because everyone they work with is on a different system, and each individual system to connect with is very, very difficult. So WMS and supply chain broadly, there's not what I call like data interoperability. Systems don't play very nice with each other because of that dynamic fragmentation plus legacy systems.
Boy, I couldn't agree more with you. Could not agree more. So kind of, if I kind of create a conduit or a Rosetta Stone to communicate effectively with all WMSs that are out there for the variety of reasons, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy. What we do as a business is we build integrations into all of the different WMS, whether it's an off-the-shelf system or a 3PL with a custom system. We normalize and map that into a common data model. So your Rosetta Stone analogy for like a single unified data model. And then software companies connect to our unified data model once, and now they're pre-integrated with every system we support. So we have 90 integrations today, and it's a healthy number, but we're still just scratching the surface of the market given how fragmented and how many systems there are. But when we add our 91st, this is the beauty of our product. Software company connects to our API. They're now integrated with 90 plus systems. But when we add our 91st, 92nd, 93rd integration, because we map it to that common data model, you don't need to do any extra work. So once you're integrated once, you have support for all existing and future integrations we build. So now those software companies, they don't need to worry when they onboard a brand or a warehouse as a customer. Oh no, what WMS are you on? They can say, no, I already support it. I'm integrated with Trackstar and they're already pre-integrated with your system. I can onboard you immediately in one click. So it's definitely a really powerful product to help software innovate more easily in the space.
Fascinating. So let's break into why a little bit, if you don't mind, Jeremy, just for the listeners out there. Can you describe kind of what hidden costs with regard to time, money, customer experience are these bottlenecks that you're fixing? What did they create as far as hidden costs for businesses today?
Yeah, I can talk about how we benefit the ecosystem. So if you're a shipper and you want to buy new software, let's say it's an inventory forecasting tool, a returns management system. It can be shipping software, whatever it may be. What happens is as a shipper, you want to buy that software, but you can only use that software if it integrates with your WMS, because that software needs to ingest your data. The challenge is if you're a shipper, you say, hey, software, do you integrate with my WMS? They go, no. And then they ask what system you're on, and you're on with 3PL, some custom system. They say, hey, I'm never going to build that. It's going to cost me more to build that integration than it is to onboard you as a customer. And now what happens is, because of this lack of digital interoperability, that shipper cannot buy best-in-class software that they need to improve their operations. And from the software company's point of view, now that's who our customer is, we sell them software companies. The software companies have two major challenges. They want to onboard as many customers as possible. They want to tell that shipper, hey, yes, we can support you. We can have that integration. But there's two key dynamics at play. One, they don't have the engineering resources to build each integration in-house. Building 90 plus integrations would be a multi-million-dollar lift. They don't want to do it. So inevitably, building integrations themselves, huge cost center. It would cost them literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to do this internally. So they end up turning away business. But now the other unlock that we have is, once a software company is integrated with our API, they can confidently go to any shipper and say, hey, I can onboard you. I already support your system. So not only is it saving them engineering resources to unlock more WMS integrations, it also is really effective in letting their sales team close any deal confidently. What's great is Trackstar's happy because the software company is, the customer's happy. The shipper loves it because now the shipper is buying software that otherwise would have said, hey, I can't support you. And then the 3PLs also love it because they want to be tech forward. They want to tell shippers, hey, my 3PL can partner with me. Our WMS is really interoperable with other software. We are a tech forward player in the space, and Trackstar enables all of that. Shippers to get great software companies to close more deals, and 3PLs to advertise their WMS works with a lot of different systems because of Trackstar. So it is really a rising tide raises all ships for everyone in the industry here.
Great. So let me just dive into one detail for you that stands out to me. I think the listener would like to learn more about. You'd mentioned in the 3PL environment, and correctly, by the way, that there's a lot of legacy, locally built WMS solutions out there.
Yeah.
How does Trackstar integrate in that environment efficiently?
Yeah, it's efficiently is a hard word, right? I think the beauty is all we do is WMS integrations. All other software companies in the supply chain ops commerce space, they're building core products, and then they also may build some integrations, but integrations aren't their core product. Why I say so first is because we are experts in this. What's really nice is 2 years ago, I wouldn't have said this, now I will. We are world foremost expert at WMS integrations. We've done this 90 plus times, more than anyone else. It's all our team lives and breathes. So we know all the gotchas, whether it's a tech forward WMS, which is more rare, or an old outdated legacy system.
Which is much more common.
Much more common. We've seen every flavor of it. So when we build an integration, we know the gotchas. We know what questions to ask. We often actually know that APIs better than their own teams. But there's always a way to get data out. So let's say that WMS has their own custom system. They don't have an API built out. We'll meet the warehouse wherever they are technologically. So if they need to set up a SFTP server and we integrate and connect via that and they upload files on a daily basis, we will ingest that and then our customers still experience Trackstar's API. I think it's we're integration experts. My co-founder Daniel led an integration team at Datadog. So he lives and breathes and knows this better than anyone. And it's the benefit of we'll meet customers wherever they are. Why I jokingly opened with it's not always that efficient is these integrations aren't easy. They take, for us, weeks. They're not taking months. And then we've also built a lot of infrastructure to be able to spin these up more quickly. It's part of the beauty, again, of focus. And then the last piece is, I mentioned a software company doesn't want to build an integration to a 3PL with a custom system because it costs them a bunch of money and they don't know the next time they're going to onboard someone else on that system. The beauty for Trackstar is we work with dozens and dozens of software companies that use our API that sell to thousands of warehouses and merchants. So for us, when we build a connection into a bespoke system, a 3PL with a bespoke system, we're still able to reuse that connection. Software company A uses our API to onboard someone working with that warehouse. Software companies B, C, and D will also eventually onboard someone in that warehouse as well. So we're able to build those really niche custom systems because we're reusing it across our very broad customer base of software tools.
Great. Wow. So how do universal APIs like what Trackstar has built, how are they simplifying integrations across multiple WMSs and multiple 3PLs in that environment?
That's a great question. It's not easy. I think the hard part is when we first started building the
I didn't
product.
say efficient. I didn't say efficient that time.
Yeah, sure. We have to create our own common data model. So we would look at all the different systems and how each WMS calls different fields and map it to what we created our own data model, which is really our own schema. And then once we developed our own schema, which leaned on our expertise of building so many systems, we just have to map each system to that same schema. I think it's hard in the beginning. It's harder in the beginning. And now that we have a very defined schema, adding a new system we're able to quickly spin that up. But no, it's the beginning of our product. We map everything to that common data model. And then once that's done, software companies connect once and have all the integration supported. Universal APIs are really helpful in letting software companies focus on what they do best. Like I said, whether it's inventory forecasting or returns, shipping, helping with tariffs, whatever it may be. And that the universal API model mapping, all that, we do all the mapping work, and that really helps streamline things for the software companies.
Great. Can you share another example of kind of where this particular approach has really simplified integrations for a kind of user case or accelerated operations on that front?
Yeah, I can give you a great example. One of our customers is an inventory forecasting tool that sells to call it lower to mid-market shippers, $10 to $100 million of top line.
Okay.
Their inventory forecasting tool needs to ingest two data sources. Sales data. Inventory forecasting at its core is supply and demand. What's your demand and what's your supply? Demand being how many orders do you have, and supply being how much inventory do you have. This inventory forecasting tool was really struggling because every time they would onboard a customer, that customer would say, they'd say, hey, I need to integrate with your systems. What WMS are you on? And every single time it would be a different WMS. They built a couple integrations in-house. I think they built ShipHero, Longua, and maybe one more WMS in-house. But what ended up happening is every time they meet with a new brand or new shipper, that brand would name a new system. The engineering team started pushing back. They said, hey, we're focusing on the core product. We can't build more integrations. And this is really frustrating for the sales team because they were meeting with dozens of brands a month and turning them all away. And then that company found out about Trackstar. They built an integration into our API, and it was the sales team's dream come true. Now, every time they met with a brand or shipper, they'd say, what's your WMS? They go, oh, we already support it. Once in a while, they'd say, hey, Trackstar, I noticed you don't support the system. Can you build it? We quickly added to our API, and they were able to go from adding a couple of merchants a month to adding dozens of merchants a month, dozens of shippers a month, which is a huge unlock for them. And the engineering team loves it because they then didn't have to build any integrations at all. So instead of saying, no, we only can build a few, they now are able to just exclusively focus their time on making their product as robust as possible. But it doesn't stop at inventory forecasting. We don't care how the data gets used. Like I said, returns management softwares need this data. There's a cool new use case with a lot of software companies doing tariff refunds, tariff drawbacks, and we're helping they need to connect to shippers WMS to power that functionality. We work with tech-forward lenders who give loans to shippers, and they want inventory data as part of their underwriting process. Shipping solutions. There's a whole slew of software helping 3PLs create invoices or manage cash flow better. And every single time they need to integrate with the WMS to onboard a customer. So It's a lot. The coolest thing for us is we're seeing a lot of new software get built in the space that we're able to help them grow more quickly because they don't have to they don't have to spend half their engineering time on integrations. They can focus all their time on building best-in-class operational software.
Is it fair to assume then that kind of the solution that Trackstar is bringing to the marketplace, is it fair to assume that it's enabling more innovation with the existing engineers and developers out there?
It's the best part about our product. What's actually really interesting is a lot of our customers are early stage startups, and they'll meet with the venture capital firms, and the venture capital firm will say, how are you going to handle integrations? And the company will be like, I actually don't know. We're scared, we're nervous. And the venture capital firm will say, you should talk to Trackstar. Your idea, if they didn't exist, would be almost impossible to get off the ground. But because they exist, you actually cannot worry about integrations. Go talk to them. And they send us tons of deals. But it's really cool seeing there's a lot of early stage tech using our API that's growing incredibly quickly. that some people told us, hey, if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't have built our product because it would have been too challenging. So yes, it's fair to say it's probably my favorite part about the job is seeing early stage software companies use our product, enjoy the experience, and it leads to a better ecosystem. Amazing new tech that can be built more quickly, helps shippers and warehouses improve their operations, which creates just better outcomes for everyone involved.
So, in practical terms, Jeremy, infrastructure as a service model, right? Flexible infrastructure as a service model. What does that mean to a shipper specifically?
Yeah, I think shippers actually have had a really hard time with this historically, where a shipper works with the 3PL, they buy their software stack, maybe it gets connected, but things change. Businesses grow. They add new 3PLs, they expand, they go from D2C to retail. Businesses are always evolving, but the challenge is once they set their tech stack up once, as the business evolves, their tech stack stays behind because they can't keep up with their growing business. So they have stagnant tools or they're stuck with the 3PL that can't support them properly. And what's nice about Trackstar is we add flexibility into their infrastructure. A brand can easily add a second 3PL node on a different WMS, and their software tools can one-click connect, and they have no disruption to their operations. I think generally speaking, shippers have had a pretty stagnant tech stack. Once they implemented ERP and whatever 3PL and WMS they're on, nothing changes. And buying new software became really painful because of the implementation lift. And now we're seeing the lift for shippers to use new technology massively decrease. So they're buying better tech, and a lot of that's because of simplifying integrations and that tech interoperability. So it also lets them have more, like you said, more flexible infrastructure. They could buy whatever tools because all their tools play nice with each other and swap solutions in and out much more readily.
Incredible. So if I heard you right before, Jeremy, you'd mentioned about, you standardize data, right? You bring it in, you standardize it, comes across. Are you giving any thought to practical applications for what that standardized data can do for companies, or are you leaving it to them to solve?
The answer is both. Historically, we left it to them to solve. We would tell software companies, hey, you know your customers. We're a developer product for you. We don't want to be prescriptive telling you to build X, Y, Z. It's not our job. But what we ended up noticing is people weren't asking us to tell them what to build, but they want to lean on our expertise. A really cool use case we see is order editing. Customer support tools. If you ever went to a brand's website and you see a little chat bot in the bottom right, that's a customer support tool that can help you answer questions, the end consumer answer questions. We were talking to some of these companies and they're like, hey, what do you think we can do with your API? Why would we want to use WMS data? And I said, have you ever thought about order editing? So now a customer buys a red t-shirt. They realize, oh no, I meant to buy a blue t-shirt. They go to the chatbot and they say, hey, chatbot, can you swap my t-shirt to a blue t-shirt? Without WMS connectivity, the workflow is the chatbot says, email this person at the brand. The person emails the brand emails the warehouse emails the person back. It's a week-long flow just to get told, we haven't shipped the blue t-shirt, we haven't shipped the red t-shirt out yet, we can swap the order if you want. Now, the customer support tool is integrated with the brand's WMS. So I, as an end consumer, go, hey, I bought a red t-shirt accidentally, can I switch it to blue? Customer support tool pings the WMS and says, yeah, we haven't shipped it yet. We can update that order for you. Do you want us to update it? You go, yes, it's all done in 30 seconds versus a multi-week-long delay. We were prescriptive there. A customer was asking, a potential customer was saying, how can I use this data? How would this help my product? And we had insightful opinions on how it could be used. And we're seeing it power incredible flows for them. So the answer is we originally weren't prescriptive, but then we realized people are just asking for, they want to lean on our expertise that we have in the space. So we're happy to give people thoughts on different workflows. We generally still want them to, they obviously need to know their customer, which they do, but we provide some guidance around the margin for how they can improve their products using this really rich data source, which is WMS.
Awesome. Sounds like you're continuing to listen to the client.
I would say that's the best thing we've ever done is we listen to our customers always. We don't do anything. We haven't built a single integration or built a single feature without customer input in the last 18 months. Everything is dictated by customers telling us what they want and when they want it. And it's how we built a best-in-class product. We we keep our ear as close to the ground with customers as possible, catching up with them as regularly as possible. So it was the best advice we got was listen to your customer. And we hold that true to heart.
Good for you. Good for you. So, shipper listening to our conversation today, and they feel a little stuck, a little overwhelmed, kind of in their integration bottlenecks. What is a first step that they can take?
So really good question. It somewhat depends on where they're stuck. If a shipper's stuck where the problem is, my gut is every shipper has an individually unique problem related to their integrations. Someone wants to buy an inventory forecasting tool and it doesn't connect. That's a very different challenge than they want to buy a return software that doesn't connect. Same solution, which is Trackstar can help power that connectivity for the software company. It depends what their actual integration challenge is at the moment, because there's ERP challenges, you're moving from one warehouse to another and the data is not able to move forward. My gut advice from my lens at Trackstar is there's probably a point solution that solves your unique pain point, and that point solution should solve the integration challenge for you. I actually don't think integration should be the burden of the shipper. The integration should be the burden of the software company to connect to the shipper systems. Unfortunately, my answer is it depends a little bit on what their unique challenge is, because we run into hundreds of different integration challenges people could face.
Yeah, I could imagine. What has you most excited about where logistics technology is headed, Jeremy?
Yeah, my worldview on logistics technology is behind the curve versus other types of software categories. Whether it's technology in the healthcare space or fintech, there was a massive fintech boom. A lot of that was built on the back of Plaid, which is the universal API for banking data, and it's whose model we molded for the supply chain space. I think logistics tech is a little behind other categories. A lot of this is related to integration challenges. What's really exciting to me for both shippers and the technology companies is shippers realize they need to button up their operations. I think 5 years ago, everything was focused on let's dump marketing dollars into Facebook because every dollar we put in, I'm making it up, gives us $4 in return. We don't need to have highly buttoned up and profitable operations because we could pour money into the Facebook slot machine. And then I think also shippers had this worldview of my supply chain is fine unless some crazy supply chain shock happens. But when's that going to happen? And then next thing you know, over the last 5 to 10 years, we have a new supply chain shock every year. Tariffs most recently, then there was COVID, Suez Canal getting blocked, port strikes in Los Angeles, the Baltimore Bridge issue. Every 6 to 12 months, we have a new shock to the supply chain system. And brands, I think, are very eyes wide open of, we need best-in-class technology to help us weather these shocks. So what's really exciting for me is there are no marketing tech, health, like all these other technologies have had this massive boom. We're seeing the same thing in logistics and supply chain tech because everyone's realizing operations are what makes a business survive and thrive. Every dollar of margin you can save is incredibly valuable to profitability. So more than ever before, we see tons of new software companies popping up in the space every day, every week.
So excited for you, Jeremy. I think you've really stumbled onto a particularly useful need in the space. It's kind of a universal need, if you will, right?
I like that. And definitely stumbled in is definitely the right term. We found a really cool, compelling problem, and we're excited to be solving it.
Good for you. So if you were to try to leave our listeners with 2 or 3 key takeaways from our discussion, what would those be, Jeremy?
Yeah, I would say if you're a shipper or software company, it's that integrations are no longer a blocker if you use a solution like Trackstar. Interoperability is very doable leveraging our technology. And then I think the last takeaway is less related to Trackstar, more related to the ecosystem. We have a really great line of sight into, like you highlighted before, technology entering the space. And I think the ecosystem is as strong as ever. There's amazing technology helping companies weather the impact of tariffs or improve returns, just help make their operations, make sure they have the right shipping providers at the right time to save tons of money there. It's the best time ever to be in supply chain tech. And I think there's only more and more challenges to solve and cool businesses to build. So I would also tell people, if you're thinking about building technology in the supply chain ops space, you're solving real pain points that impact the end consumer, and I'd recommend doing it. We're seeing a lot of great tech building.
Right. I can't thank you enough for joining me today and sharing your thoughts and your insights. I think they're brilliant, frankly. Hey, for anyone who wants to learn more about Trackstar, the work your team's doing, what's the best way to connect with you and your company, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm always available. So people can reach me at jeremy@trackstarhq.com.
Okay.
Or if they don't want to email me directly, our website, TrackstarHQ, TrackstarHQ.com. We have a sign-up form where people can ping it, and we respond really quickly. Or, we were talking about this before the recording started, I go to a lot of trade shows. If anyone wants to say hi to me at a trade show, I am always available and happy to make time.
I look forward to sharing a cup of coffee with you.
Yes, I definitely would love that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, same. Well, thank you, Jeremy. And listeners, thanks again for tuning in to another edition of Parcel Perspectives. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Parcel Perspectives, hosted by me, Glenn Gooding. I've been in the small parcel space for 37 years, starting with a deep and broad background working for one of the major carriers as an operator and industrial engineer, later managing pricing at the highest level for the largest, most complex shippers in the world. Since then, I've been a national thought leader and worked to help drive strategy for clients from Fortune 50 companies to startup e-commerce businesses, helping them more competitively align in this complex and expensive market. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share with friends. Join us next time for more expert advice and strategies to stay ahead of the shipping game.